If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how I found out about this. It's free. It's on your app store. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right now from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Please, I urge you, don't waste another minute. I wasted 3 years. I attended all kinds of events to learn all the steps. I was so confused, and it was right here. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do it now. Move over, CNN. There's a new player on the cable news block. Black News Channel launched a new morning news show today, March 1, 2021. For the Heart and Home podcast, I'm your host, Sabah Fakhoury. First, a few headlines. This weekend, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, known as the FDA, gave emergency authorization for Johnson & Johnson's coronavirus vaccine, and the CDC, known as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, also gave it their nod. So today, 3.9 million doses of the third U.S. COVID-19 vaccine are being shipped out and could be in people's arms by tomorrow. The J&J vaccine only requires one dose. More than 2,400 cases of the UK, Brazil, and South African coronavirus variants have been detected in the United States. And the CDC chief warns the actual number could be much higher. The head chief, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says, take any of the vaccines available to you as quickly as possible. We'll talk more about people's hesitations and distrust of the vaccine next weekend. Today, I was actually able to score a vaccination appointment for my 83-year-old mother at Henry Ford Health System in Dearborn, Michigan. Thank you, healthcare workers. It went without a hitch after weeks of trying to get an appointment, not being available, having to drive an hour away in order to get the vaccination, then having to wait for the second vaccination being, issued to the first responders. And today, finally, my mom got her first vaccination. So I feel so much better. All right, this is already shaping up to be a busy month. What's that saying? They say March comes in like a lion, where it's cold and unpleasant weather, and it goes out like a lamb, and we get some nice warm spring temperatures. Well, besides being National Women's History Month, Democratic lawmakers will be working on immigration reform that would legalize undocumented immigrant farm workers and children. Coincidentally, President Biden is also pursuing a bill called the U.S. Citizenship Act that seeks to legalize millions of undocumented immigrants who are already here in this country. So it looks like the welcome mat is back out in front of our White House and the U.S. Capitol building as well. The Middle East is back in American headline news on two fronts. First, the Biden administration is being criticized for not sanctioning Saudi Arabia following This Friday's release of a declassified intelligence report that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the 2018 gruesome murder of U.S.-based journalist for the Washington Post and critic of the Saudi government, Jamal Khashoggi, at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. Man, that story continues to haunt us, every journalist, and the U.S. government. Meanwhile, Iran isn't playing nice and rejected an offer by the European Union to return to the negotiating table to talk with the U.S. and other signatories of the 2015 nuclear deal, which former President Trump withdrew from in 2018. He cited it failed to curtail Iran's missile program. Duh! Well, the U.S. has attempted to play the world policeman. Unfortunately, some foreign nations don't appreciate outside interference in their country's business. Thus, compliance through diplomacy isn't going to work in this case. Why are we getting involved again? Well, simply because Iran's nuclear weapons program causes problems for our regional allies, namely Israel and Saudi Arabia. In other news, Nomadland and The Crown scored big at last night's 78th Golden Globes. Once again, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, those men, white men, crazy Europeans as they were called, that present the awards, was the subject of controversy from a number of Hollywood figures for its lack of inclusivity. In her career achievement acceptance speech, Jane Fonda urged the industry to lead in inclusivity and diverse stories. The TV honor went to 90-year-old producing legend Norman Lear. I've included links in my show notes of the full text of Jane Fonda's powerful Lifetime Achievement Award acceptance speech and a link of CNN's roundup of nominees and winners in last night's Golden Globes. And if you haven't heard enough from the women of Hollywood, March, as I mentioned, is National Women's History Month. Go ladies! Okay, let's get serious here. Here's how the Black News Channel covered the Golden Globes controversy. They had on Tanya Hart, host of Hollywood Live with Tanya Hart. And here's what she had to say.
They weren't listening to me 21 years ago when I called out the Hollywood Foreign Press for sitting Lee Daniels and his then leading lady, Halle Berry, at the kitchen door. Literally, they were sitting by the kitchen door, and that was the year that, by the way, she won the Golden Globe and the Oscar. But anyway, I've been through with them since then, and I don't know why it took so long. It's a group of about 87 people. They're very haughty, this group, and they pride themselves in really kind of being in their own little exclusive world. And so they've just gotten away with this for so long. Everybody thought, oh, they're quirky and they're this and they're that. And we go and we have a good time. But no, they've never paid any attention. And it was interesting. This year, they really have gotten called out by the Los Angeles Times, which did a full-page ad about their lack of diversity. And, of course, Ava DuVernay, Sterling K. Brown, J.J. Abrams, Ellen Pompeo, who did it. All of these folks did open letters about it this year. And I think it's just because we've reached that point in American history where everybody is having a reckoning, and they need to as well.
Do you think that this is the time where we will actually see a change? They have vowed to address the lack of diversity. You say you've been calling it out for a long time. They've done nothing. Will they do it now?
Well, let me just say this. What they did with the show, if you notice, they changed their show around, and they had the African-American winners at the top. They did a few, and then, they came back. And they had a lot of folks on the show. Over the last few years, they've done better in terms of presenters and all of that. But that's not the bottom line. The bottom line is, who is on their board that is going to represent people of color? Nobody. And, it'll be interesting to see because it is the foreign press. And so I'm thinking, and there are a lot of people of color that come here actually from London and other places to cover the Oscars and cover all of these award shows. I'm so surprised that they have not pulled any of those people in at this point. Here we are in 2021. So those are the folks I would think that they would go after. And we'll see what happens. I think that they've got to do something, though, because, when Ava DuVernay and J.J. Abrams call you out, then you've definitely been put on blast.
For sure. Yeah, those are Hollywood power players. What do you think that they will do?
Well, I think if they're smart, like I said, they will go out and they'll find some journalists of color who work outside of the United States, because it is the foreign press, and there are a lot of people that work outside of the United States, and get them on their board, because I think it would just really open it up for a lot of films and TV shows that we don't even see here. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I really don't know what they're going to do, but I do know that after being called out by all of these people in Hollywood, that they will now do something. So we'll see. They've got a year to pull it together.
That was a clip of Tanya Hart, who was on the Black News Channel today. As I mentioned in my opening, the Black News Channel launched a new weekday morning news show called Start Your Day with veteran local Atlanta news anchor Sharon Reed and Fox sports personality Mike Hill, beginning at 6 a.m. Eastern, to better serve the African American community. The 4-hour time slot will be filled with long-form interviews, like not those 1 and 2 minute quick things like, hello, get in here. Oh, we just have 60 seconds to go. Can you just wrap it up and let's go. Not that kind of format. It's kind of like the 60 Minutes or the evening news format shows where they take one topic and they might spend 20 minutes or an hour on that one subject. That's what long form means as compared to the short form where you get 3 minutes and you're in and you're out. And what would they be covering? They'll be talking about social justice, personal health, and economic wellness specific to the Black community. The morning news show is the result of BNC's new chief executive, Princell Hare, who has been revamping the network's lineup. Since in July, Mr. Hare has grown the Black News Channel from 2.5 million to a potential 52 million households after striking deals with Comcast's Xfinity, AT&T's DirecTV, and Dish Network, among others. Mr. Hare also revamped the network's lineup, signing high-profile commentators Charles Blow and Mark Lamont Hill. Okay, these are big names, okay? These people are like icons. Their shows are expected to provide coverage and analysis through the Black lens, something the network's executives and newscasters believe Black Americans aren't getting anywhere else. Now, Mr. Hare, when he took over, he commissioned a research that found that Black Americans feel underserved with news coverage choices and that the community is an untapped driver of economic growth. Mr. Hare is not new to the news business. He's a seasoned TV veteran, and he has worked at CBS, CNN, Turner Broadcasting, and NBC Sports. In an interview, Mr. Hare said the stories of the past year, which included the COVID-19 pandemic, the George Floyd murder that culminated in widespread civil unrest, a contentious presidential election, record unemployment, all of these stories disproportionately impacted Black and Brown communities. So that's why the network has relaunched and is going after the cable news audience, and that is going to further fragment where people get their news from. So I remember when, CNN launched. That was back in 1991. I was in advertising. I was in Detroit, and some unknown guy with a Southern accent, came into Detroit and talked to the ad community and said he was taking his Atlanta superstation to become a network station, and it was going to be called Cable News Network, CNN. That was in 1991. The media mogul Ted Turner spoke before the Detroit ad community before its launch. And back then, people didn't know what cable was. They had no idea the potential for growth and the market that existed once the FCC opened up more channels, lifting the monopoly held in the market by the major three networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. Now, today, the cable market is concentrated around CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. So there is room for other players to come in. The Black News Channel is largely backed by NFL team Jacksonville Jaguars owner Shad Khan, who also owns Fulham FC of the English Premier League. Now, Mr. Khan started to invest in the network, which was co-founded by former Oklahoma Congressman J.C. Watts a few years ago. The network isn't yet rated by Nielsen. And the Nielsen ratings, these are what people live and die for. Okay? They need those numbers in order for them to be able to charge larger amounts per ad spot. So, for instance, if your show is only getting a 1 rating, then your ad you can only charge so much for it. However, if Nielsen finds that the audience watching your show, and at this point, we have no idea because we don't have the numbers, so it's an opportunity for advertisers to get before an audience and pay lower rates, because once we really see the numbers, those ad rates are going to spike. Trust me, when you take a chance and buy a spot in either a movie or some show that doesn't have a rating, which means it hasn't been measured and hasn't previously given advertisers a number that they can actually look at so that they can analyze how much they're paying per household, because each number represents so many households that are watching that show. It also doesn't tell us the psychographics of the number of women, men, the age group, their education. There are so many other levels that advertisers look at when they're targeting their ads. So this is big news in the cable TV market, in the news market as well. And I'm really excited. I actually got a chance to watch it because I'm a Xfinity cable member. And so I got a chance to watch the network. I also got a chance to watch it on my mobile phone. And there were a few glitches, of course, but hey, that's what happens. Even when I worked at CNN, I had an internship there in the summer. And I think it was in Washington, D.C. I remember working for David French, the anchor. And when they would throw from Atlanta to Washington, D.C., we would run the teleprompter and prepare the news and rip the copy and get it ready. And I remember my first time on the teleprompter, I didn't tape the last page, and the script went flying off of the teleprompter, and there was the news anchor, David French, looking at a blank prompter with nothing to read. But he ad-libbed, and he did it so beautifully, and I thought I was in big trouble, and he turned out to be such a good friend. Anyways, that's it for today's episode of Heart and Home Podcast. Next week, we explore why African Americans distrust the COVID-19 vaccination and the coveted Oprah interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. For the Heart and Home Podcast, I'm Sabah Fakhoury. Have a great week.